Okay, this is a how-to video on Pythagoras Theorem. Now we notice here for this first question, we have solve for x. We're given this side is 5, we're given this side is 3, and this side is x. And x is the side we're trying to find. Now, one important thing is this is a right angle triangle. And that's just what this little square here means. Otherwise, you could write 90 degrees. And right angle triangles are what we need to have in order for Pythagoras theorem to work. It doesn't work on non-right angle triangles. Okay, our first step is to label our right angle triangle. Now, the most important side for labeling is called our hypotenuse, and our hypotenuse is always opposite the right angle, which is what I've drawn this arrow on here, just to show us this side here will be our hypotenuse. And our hypotenuse is labeled C. It's also known as the longest side of the triangle. Then the other two sides are labeled A and B. It doesn't really matter which one you order which, as long as you just label them consistently throughout the question. So for this question, I'm saying X is A and B is 3. And then what I've got here is just this written out. So we see A is X, because they're next to each other there. B is 3, next to each other here. And 5 is C. And then our next step is to substitute these three values, and these are just the values we had from the last page, into our theorem. Remembering Pythagoras theorem is A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So replace the A with X, we see here. Replace the B with 3, we see here. And the C with 5. And then what we want to do is just rearrange. So we have x squared by itself. And to do that, we subtract the 3 squared from both sides. When we subtract 3 squares from the left, it just becomes 0, so it goes away. And then we see this is us subtracting 3 squared from the right. And then we can start to make this look a little bit nicer. So 5 squared equals 25, 3 squared equals 9, and the x squares just stay the same. Then we have x squared equals 25 minus 9 is 16. So we have x squared equals 16. Now we square root both sides because squaring and square rooting are the opposite of each other. So when we square root both sides, it undoes this square. So the square root of x squared is x. And the square root of 16, we're just writing a square root of 16 for now. And then if you put that in your calculator, you'd see square root of 16 is 4. So we're left with x equals 4. And that's how we find one of the shorter sides of a right angle triangle. And then we've just put centimeters, just to not forget, but we want to keep our units. And we know it's centimeters because from the starting question with our diagram, just go back to that now, we've got centimeters. Okay, let's go down to the next question. So next question, we're finding the longer side of a right angle triangle. Now, our first step is going to be still the same thing. We're still just going to label all our sides in terms of A, B, and C. Now, C again is going to be your hypotenuse, and it's going to be the side that's opposite your right angle. That's what I've just got this arrow here saying. It's opposite our right angle. So we see C is Y, and then I just labeled A and B. Now, A and B are pretty interchangeable. You can label either side A or B, as long as you're talking about the two sides that are not opposite the right angle. And then I've just written this down here. So we've got A equals 5, they're next to each other here. B equals 12, and C equals Y. And at the end, we're just going to have to write our answer in millimeters. So we just keep an eye on that. Now, our next step is to substitute into the theorem. Remembering Pythagoras theorem is A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And then we just substitute these values in. So you see where we have A replaced with a 5, where we have B replaced with a 12, where we have C replaced with a Y. And then we just want to get Y squared all by itself. And it kind of already is. I just like writing on the left because I feel like it makes it a little bit easier to read when we have what we're finding on the left by itself. It looks a little bit like it makes more sense. Having Y squared equals 5 squared plus 12 squared. And then we can just tidy this up a little bit. So 5 squared is the same thing as 25. 12 squared is the same thing as 144. And then 12 squared plus 144 is 169. So we've got y squared equals 169. Now to get rid of the square, we need to square root both sides. So the square root of y squared is y. Square root of 169, we can write a square root of 169. And then if you put that in the calculator, you would get 13. So y equals 13. And then don't forget our units, millimeters. And if we're not given units in the beginning of the question, we can always just put the word units, just to show we've tried to put some units in there. Okay, and that's all on Pythagoras theorem.